Hey guys, what's up? It's Whitera SC here, and I thought I'd put together a quick video that just talks about my top 5 ways to improve yourself on the ladder and improve your overall gameplay. I watch a lot of low-level, mid-level, and high-level streams, and these are the most common mistakes I see amongst players that are trying to get better and trying to improve, but they're just doing a poor job of it. You can put in, as much effort as you possibly want, but if you're putting that effort in the wrong places, all you're going to do is stagnate. You're not going to get better. Nothing's going to improve. It's going to start getting frustrating really quickly. So with that being said, let's talk about the number 5 thing. And the number 5 one is you want to narrow your focus to one thing at a time. This is something a lot of people seem to forget about and make as a mistake. But the bottom line is your brain can really only handle one or two things to actively think about at one time. If you're trying to push any more than that, you're simply not going to work, right? So you have to make sure you work with your own brain rather than try to force it to do too many things at once. So you'll see somebody and they'll play a game and they'll be like, oh, my macro is bad, my creep spread was bad, I didn't make overlords, I supply blocked here, I took a bad engagement there, I completely missed microed here, and they'll be like, okay, so for this next game I can't get supply blocked here, I need to creep spread better, I need to do this, and they actually get worse because they're trying to do too much at once. What you want to do is just focus on one issue at a time, and then don't worry if that issue that you're trying to work on and fix is hindering other parts of your gameplay. A really good example of this would be something like creep spread, right? If all you do is focus on creep spread and your drone production and your macro and all that kind of takes a back seat and falls a little bit and gets worse, you might struggle to win some games. But at the end of the day, if you can, creep all the way across the map and all you do is get beautiful creep spread, then you've had a victory and you should count it as such when you're looking at the ladder. Because the next time you go and you play and you stop worrying about creep spread, you're just naturally going to be a lot better at it. You're probably not going to get all the way across the map like Scarlet does in like 30 seconds. But your creep spread's going to go from, like me, none, to significantly better where you're going to get, a lot of the map creeped up rather quickly, and your brain's just going to start doing it automatically. It's really important. Just one thing at a time, nothing more. Alright, let's talk about issue number 4. Now, issue number 4 is fix issues you know about, and I don't like them is not a good excuse. This is another thing I see all the time, and people will argue with you and try to justify their playstyle over and over. They'll be like, oh, it doesn't matter, I really like, I'll use me as an example. I really like using a lot of Marines, I don't like using siege tanks, so I play very bio-heavy TBT. Now, where that really hurts me is, quite simply, I win a lot of games because my opponent mispositions his army or moves out at the wrong time, or even in some cases he just doesn't expect me to have only Marines as a force, so when he attacks into me, he's like, oh, what the hell is this? As my army just mows him down and I win. Now, the downside of that is I'm still shitty at using siege tanks, and I need to get better at it, right? So when I'm playing and streaming, one of my biggest focuses in TBT is once I get to my 3rd base, getting 3 factories up and starting to get a lot of siege tanks. That's really going to help me out, right? Never use the I don't like them as an excuse. It's really important that you can, realize when you're bad at something and use the correct counterplay. A lot of people, I see people that don't like to use Phoenixes to counter mutas, and there's absolutely no reason not to. Well, my micro is bad. Well, sure, because you never do it. If you start using something, you're going to get better at it very quickly. And it's the easiest way to plug holes in your game is simply never use the excuse, I don't like them, and fix issues you know about. If you know you're bad at, using mutalisks, then use them. If you know you're bad at using siege tanks, use the damn things, right? If you already know about your issues, you got to fix them. Don't use excuses to get around it. The third thing we're going to talk about is a very famous line from a great Protoss player called Whitera. I strongly recommend you check out a lot of his old videos. The guy's A, hilarious, and B, was an excellent Protoss player. Now, one of the biggest things Whitera said is more GG, more skill. Now, what does he mean by that? And it's really simple. You don't learn very much when you win. When I go out and I win a game of StarCraft 2, it feels good, I'm happy, I'm pumped. Usually I feel like I've done certain things well, and I know there's a couple areas that I slipped in, but it's very hard for me to go back, look at the replay honestly, and find out where my mistakes were, other than things that are just super obvious and straightforward, right? But when I lose a game, that changes everything. It really lets me get down into my own gameplay and figure out where my mistakes are and get better a lot quickly. So when you have that really frustrating loss, hey, to Protoss, you lost a big, huge fight, and their huge army just absolutely destroyed yours. Find out what happened. Is it because you scanned and you didn't see the High Templar that were dragging behind and they came in and stormed you? What was it, right? When you lose a game, make sure you remember this is a learning experience. This is the best way to get better is by losing the games, right? So it's really important that you're not bitter about it. Now, I'm going to add a little caveat to that, in that if you are playing and something, let's say you die to a 2-gate proxy or something silly that's like, well, for me right now, I really don't care that much, so I don't really scout my own base, right? That being said, the danger of that is, what if some guy does an in-base 2-gate proxy on me? I'm probably going to die to it, unless I out-microed or something, right? So just keep in mind, there's some games where you're just going to lose. There's really nothing to learn from it because you were either being lazy, like I was in certain situations, or it's not something that you're really focused on improving, or in some situations your opponent just does a build that is flat out bad in the current meta, but it happened to work against what you're doing. I'll give you a quick example of that. Right now, if you're playing TVZ, Reaper Expand is the most common way to open in a Terran versus Zerg. So what does that mean? Well, any kind of early pool, we're talking 10 pool or 14 pool play against Terran is very, very dangerous if you're going to try to put on aggression with a bunch of Zerglings. That means doing a 14 CC, command center first build on the low ground is 100% safe against the vast majority of Zerg builds right now. Nobody's you're probably not going to get 10 pooled. However, I did get 10 pooled. In fact, it was a 10 pool with a Baneling bust. I immediately died because I didn't even have a barracks finished yet, right? The guy shows up to my base with this stuff, and I was like, seriously? If I opened Reaper, I could have out-microed every single one of your units and won the game right there. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you lose games for silly reasons. You don't need to worry about it. But the more often you lose, the more skill you're going to get, as long as you think about it and learn. Number 2, ignore your league. Don't worry about your points. Don't worry about what league you are. When you introduce yourself to your friends, I'm a Platinum League Zerg. Don't worry about it. It really doesn't matter. If after every game you're checking the ladder, you're logging on to neos.kr and you're trying to figure out if you're close to promotion, you're only going to hurt yourself. The only time you should really start worrying about what league and how many points you have and all that stuff is once you get to Masters. And by the time you're in Masters, you'll be over that. You won't have that ladder anxiety. You won't have any pressure put on yourself for that. You'll be trying to learn and get better. One of the best examples of this, or somebody not ignoring their league, is if you choose to put the pressure on yourself that, hey, I want to get promoted, I'm close to getting promoted, and you worry about how many points you're getting and all that stuff, you're not going to get better. And the reason you're not going to get better is because you're going to be too scared to do something that's uncomfortable that's going to make you a better player. For me, myself, I used to always be stressed about what league I was in. I cared so much. I started in Gold League, I got to Platinum League, I worked my ass off to get to Diamond League, and I got stuck like all hell in Diamond League. I went to MLG, I watched pros play, I got inspired, and I busted my ass and I got to Masters League. However, I barely got to Masters League, and I got to Masters League off, one build per matchup, and they were all terrible builds. And it was just one of them was super cheesy, and I capped in I was never going to be any better than the low masters, just terrible player. So what I had to do is go back and just completely reinvent my play. And this is actually how the Filter SC Bronze to Master started, because I after I reinvented my play, I was like, this game is too hard. The tutorials and the information out there, it's not good enough. It's not easy enough to digest to be a better player faster. There is fantastic resources like the Day 9 Daily, but there's also 600 Day 9 Dailies now. If you go through the whole backlog catalog, yeah, you'll be a Masters player. Everything Day 9 talks about is fantastic, but there's so much there that it was very hard to get that information. So that's why I started the whole Bronze to Masters series, is just to kind of clarify and clean up the information a little bit. But just remember, man, ignore your league. If you ignore your league and you don't worry about it and you only worry about getting better, that's where you're going to see improvement. That's where you're going to shoot from a platinum player to a diamond player almost overnight. because you're gonna, something's gonna click, and you're just gonna get better a lot faster. And the number one thing you need to do, if you want to be a better player and you want to get better faster, is fix your damn economy. I see way too many people worried about grand strategy and their build they're doing and all this other garbage when they don't have a consistent economy. Like, do you really think Flash or any of the Morrow could play the game if he had 30 SCVs? No, his build would be totally screwed. He would have no idea what he was doing. He would look like an idiot, right? So it's important that you have a consistent economy so that you can learn the damn game. If your economy goes and varies from 25 SCVs one game to 38 the next to 40 the next to 35 to 25 to 50, your economy is going to be all over the place. Your mineral income, it's going to go from 100% of what it could be to like 70%, right? And then you're going to start cutting corners. And instead of making units out of those barracks, you're just gonna leave them idle so you can get that factory up that you need, right? Then all of a sudden, instead of having 100 supply like you should at your benchmarks, and the times you're looking to attack your opponent, you're gonna have like 75 supply. So all your upgrades and your infrastructure might be there, but your workers are not, and your army won't be. Or you won't have the upgrades to back it up. You won't have the tech. You won't have medevacs at all. Because you've been skipping getting gas or something, right? So if the only thing you do when you play StarCraft 2 is fix your damn economy, you're going to be a much better player, way faster. So just make sure you take care of the absolute basic. You get consistent at making those SCVs, and you're going to be fine. Anyway, guys, this is Filter SC. I'll see you guys later on with my next video, and I hope you enjoyed this one.